Hello, everybody. Welcome to a brand new episode of Slay It, where we dare to dream big. Slay It is all about showcasing academic and artistic excellence. In today's episode, I've invited three Ivy League school students to talk about the college application process. Everybody, please give a very, very warm welcome to Dreema Patel, a Harvard University student, Mahir Rahman, a Brown University student, and Kenan Arol, a Yale University student. It really is a pleasure to have all three of you here on the show today. So, with no further introductions, let's get started. So, I'm just going to ask you guys to share with the audience what college you go to, your major, and if you have a minor, you can also share that as well. And you can also tell the audience any other information that you want them to know. So, let's start off with you, Dreema.
Hi, I'm Dreema. Yes, I go to Harvard College in Boston. I'm majoring, or we call it concentrating in statistics, and I'm doing a secondary in economics, planning on having a career in finance. And yes.
Okay, great. And now let's head over to you, Mahir.
Hey, I'm Mahir. I'm gonna be a junior or a third year at Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island, in the fall. And I study we also have concentration, so I concentrate in economics and then international and public affairs. And I have plans to go to med school afterwards.
All right, very wonderful. So finally, let's conclude with you, Kanan.
Yeah, so my name is Kanan. I'm a rising junior at Yale. We have majors, majoring in electrical engineering and computer science. And yeah, I'm hoping to work in either like quant or tech after college, but it's like 2 years away, so who knows?
All right, that's good. So, Dreema, Mahir, you said something about some concentration thing. Can you tell me exactly what that is?
Yeah, it's the exact same thing as a major. It's just our schools want to be different, and so they call it a concentration instead of a major. They're the exact same thing.
Okay, all right, I like that. I like that. Okay, so now let's move into the questions. So I understand as you make the transition from high school to college, there's probably going to be a whole lot of differences that come about, and I expect that a lot of them will probably be for the better. So my first question for you is, what is your favorite thing about college life, and how would you compare it to high school life? So I think let's start off with you, Dreama.
Okay, yeah. Yes, I can go. Also, I forgot to mention I'm a rising sophomore. I'm not a rising junior, so I am a year young. Um, So I would say the biggest difference is obviously I'm not home, and so a lot of time management skills. I feel like when I was living at home, I would come home, meal would be cooked. I could focus more on like doing my work and like focus on my extracurriculars. However, at college, like you are living in a dorm. Some people live in apartments, so you have to, cook and clean and like also live and make sure you're making time for yourself along with classwork. I would say that's the biggest difference. Also, you're always with your friends at college. I would so try again time management, making sure you have enough time to spend with your friends, but also time for your work and just trying to find that balance between the two. Whereas I feel like in high school, when you come home, you're not with your friends. And you can kind of disassociate yourself, but if you're living with them, it's hard to, not always have fun and like be able to.
Okay, that's a pretty solid point. So based on what you said, it seems like once you go to college, you're definitely a whole lot more independent. You need to do a lot more things for yourself. But it seems like it's also pretty good in a way because you're able to spend a lot of time with your friends, and you can get study tips from them, you can get help from them. So yeah, that definitely seems like some pretty good aspects of college life. So Mahir, do you have anything to add on to what Dreama said? Any other aspects of college that you think are very advantageous?
No, I totally agree. I think time management is something that you really have to learn in college as opposed to high school because your life is a lot more structured before college. I really like the independence aspect, you know. I feel like there's a lot less control in college from outside factors, which is really nice, but it also means that you have to like actually, you know, like control yourself as well. Um, yeah, so I definitely enjoy college a lot more in that aspect. I will say I do miss like kind of the regularity of high school, seeing the same people every day and stuff. That's something that's different. You won't have that in college as much, but I think it's something that you can get used to really fast. But other than that, I agree with everything that Dreama said.
Yeah, that's also a pretty interesting point. And also one thing that I've also really thought about is that it seems like when you get to college, it seems like there's a lot more flexibility in college as well. Like in high school, it's a bit more rigid, what with your classes and your timetable and stuff. But it seems like once you go into college, it can be a little bit more flexible with that. So, Kanan, would you like to elaborate on that possibly?
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say basically the same stuff as Dreama and Mahir. You have much more freedom and much more of, I guess, like life to enjoy. Like in high school for me, it was like from 8 or 7 to like until soccer practice was over or whatever. And then once you're home, like that's it. That's the end of the day. Like 6 p.m. you're done. But in college, like you really have all of the 24 hours to do whatever you want. It's not technically to do whatever you want. Like you do need sleep, and like it's really a double-edged sword. Like you really have to keep yourself accountable with like time management. Um, and yeah, you just have to um stay on top of it. And you have to be intrinsically motivated to do that.
Yeah, those are all pretty good points. I do agree that like as you go to college, you do have, I guess, a lot more time. Like Kanan said, you do truly have 24 hours to, do your work, communicate with your friends, study. You do have a lot of time to do stuff like that, where it's not just like a big block of it from like 7 in the morning to like 3 o'clock in the afternoon or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So yeah, I definitely agree with all those points. Now, on to the next question. So, I also understand that as you make the transition from high school to college, academics also becomes a lot more of a struggle, I guess, as well. So, what would you say about how college academics are harder than high school academics? This time, let's you can start off, Mahir.
Yeah, I think so in high school you'll have, at least at Haynes, I remember we had like 90-minute classes every day or whatever, and sometimes that would be for a whole year. Um, College is totally different. You'll have either 50 minutes every other day or like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or like 80 minutes or 70 minutes, something like that on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And so it means that your classes are going to be a lot more focused during their class time. Like in high school, we would have like random things going on in class. Um, and I think that meant class was less exhausting. Once I got to college, I realized how much more exhausting and draining just being in like one 50-minute class could be. Like, you know, I never really felt tired in class in high school, but that definitely happened in college. So I think that's one thing. It's just classes are a lot more draining in that sense. And then you also have to put in way more work outside of class. So like when I'll have like a midterm for a class, especially like a STEM class, which the exams I've seen, at least for me, have been a little more demanding. You'll have to spend like like most of the day for multiple days studying in advance, whereas in high school you could get by like even for some of the hardest classes you would just have to put in a few hours max. And I think that's because you have to yeah, you just have to learn a lot more on your own. And then the material is obviously just going to be harder as you get older. And then the last thing I would say is that in high school, I think the resources are very upfront. Like you have those 90 minutes to talk to your teacher and stuff. When I took AP Calc with Dr. B, it's like a lot of that class time was devoted to just asking questions. But you won't have that time to just ask questions in class in college. You have to directly go to office hours or TA hours or set yourself. And that goes back to like you have to control yourself and make sure you actually go to these things because it's very tempting to just not and stay in your room or somewhere else or hang out with friends or something.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Now I understood the whole, I guess, like you have to study a whole lot more for college tests and college midterms and exams. I never actually thought about the aspect that like in high school you have a 90-minute class like every day, but in college, right? You have shorter classes every other day. And it just never occurred to me how like draining that could be because it's almost like you're compressing a lot of stuff that you do in 90 minutes into like a bit of a shorter time period in 50 minutes. And you're probably adding in a bit more information to account for those missed days on like Tuesday and Thursday. So yeah, that's definitely a pretty good point that you just made there, here. So Dreama, do you have anything that you'd like to add on to what Mahir said, or do you basically just concur with everything that he said?
I can add on. I would say at least at Harvard, it's a little bit different. We have like close to like we have 75-minute classes, and we also have sections on top of it. So instead of it being like we like for instance for in my math class it's every other day, but we also have um a section, so it's really like 4 times a week and it's 75 minutes, so it's like similar to what I had at Haynes. On top of that, like yes, office hours and TA hours, like that's definitely like something, and you kind of have to go to them because everything they teach, even in the 70 classes, is not really enough because you have to remember that it's not every day. And the semester is a lot shorter than I would say like the quarter system we had at Haynes. So they are trying to teach a lot of material in a very short amount of time. So you kind of have to go to stars and stuff. I would also say agree with Mahir that it's a lot more work because I feel like half the learning is actually like maybe 75% of the learning is outside of the class on your own with textbook readings. We call them like homework, like PSEP and stuff. Um, at least for econ and like certain classes, if you don't do the readings or you don't go over the lecture notes yourself, it like class is basically just a reiteration of those materials. So it's I would say like a lot of the work is not really learning in class. A lot of it is outside of class. I know a lot of people, a lot of my friends at least would like just skip class because you can just get the same information from like the textbook or the readings and then like you can just cram, which I mean, I would not advise anyone to do, but you just cram for like the big midterm or the big final exam. And that's just how it is. So I guess yeah, like similar to what Mahir said, but we have like longer classes, we have added sections, and we have a lot more material to work with outside of class.
That's yeah, once again, I never thought about it that way because actually since my brother, he goes to college as well, he always told me that like yeah, the lectures that he normally goes to, yeah, they're basically just like a reiteration and a review of the studying that's to be done like outside of class. And yeah, he said that he sometimes skips lectures because he like already knows the material and he doesn't think he like needs to go over it. So that's a very interesting approach. That's definitely very different from high school where they do teach a lot of the material in class and then you need to study it on the side. Whereas in college it's actually a bit of the opposite cuz like you need to like kind of learn a lot of stuff outside of class, but they also reiterate a lot of that in the normal classes as well. So I found that really interesting. So, Kanan, what do you have to say on this topic? Like, what do you think?
Yeah, so I agree that like classes are generally they feel more intense because you have to cram the same material or same amount of material into less time per week of class time. And yeah, Dreama's point on office hours, that's also like a really key factor here at Yale. I feel like especially intro classes, I don't know if this is the case at Brown or Harvard as well, but at Yale, they just make intro classes so difficult and like the P sets or the homeworks that they give out, they don't really discuss stuff that's as relevant to it. Or like it's not the course material they discuss in class doesn't seem immediately as familiar as it does maybe in high school. So they force you to go to office hours and collaborate with other people and stuff. And yeah, other than that though, like it also depends on, like I said again, like intrinsic motivation. You could just take very easy classes and no one's really gonna be on you like a counselor or something like, oh, you have to take this to graduate. I mean, there are graduation requirements, but there's easier requirements and there's like harder classes you could take to fulfill that. So again, it just comes down to how much do you want it, and like, or like what is your goal after college?
Yeah, that's those are all pretty good answers you guys have given. One thing I noticed that was in common with all your guys' answers is that you talked about office hours and having to go like ask the office questions about things that like maybe were not covered in class. Yeah, I find that really interesting because it's like kind of like what Kanan said. You have to, it's like motivation. You are being like almost not being told, but you're telling yourself that you should go to the office and you should like ask these questions because you didn't understand it. And yeah, I find that very, very interesting. So great. So on to the next question. I've heard a lot about these advanced placement classes in high school, or AP classes for short, and it seems like they are definitely a huge factor in the college application process and getting into good colleges. So how much would you say AP classes impact your chances of getting into an Ivy League school or a top school? So this time let's start off with Kanan. Let's start off with you, Kanan.
I think it's a huge factor. They are supposedly college level. I mean, it's not exactly like a college class because again, you're still getting your 90 minutes or whatever. But the course material is at least on a similar level. And if you do well in those classes, and if you take a lot of them, that's going to show the college you're applying to that you're prepared and eager to take college level classes. And yeah, my suggestion for that, I guess like in terms of like admissions, is like you either have to take as many APs as you can, or at least like if you want to go into like CS, for example, you have to take APCS principles or CSA or whatever. If you want to go into math, you have to do Calc A, B, or BC. So you just genuinely have to push yourself in those APs as far as you can.
Yeah, I think that was a pretty solid point because definitely with these AP classes, like it's a huge factor and kind of like once again what reiterating what Kanan said, it's showing the college that you're willing to take these college classes when you do start attending college. But Dreama, what would you say is the better approach when it comes to AP classes? Would you say it's better to take as many APs as you can, or just take the APs that you're like take the APs that have to do with the thing that you're going to major in college? Like, what do you think?
Okay, so I mean, this is like kind of the advice I got in high school, and I like kind of agree with it, which is like I think what colleges do is they look at each high school. So I think my counselor was telling us that they have to send a list of all the classes that that high school offers. And so generally, the colleges want students that are choosing the hardest classes that the high school offers. I know at Haynes, we didn't have like Calc BC. We didn't have like we didn't have AP chemistry. We didn't have a lot of AP classes, but I still took the ones that like were offered to show like just for like the rigorous, like Kanan was saying, they want the kids that are choosing the harder level classes. And I will say, um also like just to prepare yourself, I think if you take the AP classes, you're better prepared for college. And I know for a lot of kids that go to like some of the state schools, AP credit can get rid of like so many class credits for you. So in that way, like it's also just helpful. Whether you're going to an Ivy or not, I know the question's about Ivy, but even for state school, I think taking AP classes, I'd rather get it out of the way in high school than do it in college, to be honest. But when it comes to admissions, I think, yeah, if your high school offers the AP classes, you should take them. But if your high school offers like, like a ton of AP classes and you kind of have to pick and choose. And I agree with Kanan, like you kind of want your major that you're applying for to represent like your kind of classes you take, your resume. Like there kind of has to be a story behind why you're choosing the major you're choosing. So if you have a lot of AP classes to choose from, and like let's say you want to go CS, like I agree with Kanan, like take APCS over like I don't know, AP environmental science because that's something you want to go into. However, like I know at Haynes, we didn't have that option. Like we only had like 4 or 5 APs to choose from and we had to fill our schedule. So I just took all the APs that they offered, regardless of whether I applied to that major or not. So I guess that's like my advice on it, the classes, because they want kids that are reaching for and trying to achieve those hard classes.
Okay, very interesting. So based on what you said, it seems like it's a little bit like making do with what you've got, but it also is like once again, going back to what Kenan said, proving to the college that you've got what it takes to be able to do these hard classes because if you slack off and you don't take any APs, it's going to come back to bite you in the future. But this also Mahir, what do you if you took like a lot of APs and you did great in a lot and you didn't do good in a lot, or you took a few APs and you did great in all of them, which scenario would you say would be better? Like, what do you think?
Yeah, I think taking a few APs and doing better in them is way better than taking all the APs possible and doing poorly in quite a few of them. I mean, this is just based on what I've kind of noticed. Like people say, just because it shows that you understand your own level of like how you can handle different things as well. And forcing yourself to take a lot of APs and then not doing well in them, it doesn't really show a very strong skill set necessarily. It's fine to like not necessarily get an A in like a few AP classes, of course, but like if you consistently are doing poorly because you're doing so many AP classes, then that's definitely worse than just taking a few here and there, and getting all A's in your classes. Yeah, so that's what I'd say. And then other than that, I totally agree with everything Dream and Kanan said.
All right, that's very good. So I guess it's a little bit like workload management, like don't bite off more than you can chew, I guess you could say. It's important to, I guess, take take APs so that like you at least cover that aspect, but don't take too much so that it's like going to come crashing down on you. So, yeah, I definitely think it's important to balance that like
Yeah.
what Mahir said.
Yeah, if you like know you're gonna get if you know you're gonna do terrible in AP Chem because you just hate Chem, then I wouldn't take AP Chem like that.
All right. So this is I've seen some people that they have a pretty good class rank, but they don't end up getting into like the best colleges. So I just wanted to ask you guys, would you say that class rank is really an important factor when applying for top colleges? This time let's start off with you, Dreama. Let's start off with Dreama.
I'm gonna be honest, and I think class rank is not like you're defining it, like you're getting in or you're not getting in. I think if you are Val or you are top 10, I think it definitely does help and does make you stand out, but in no way, shape, or form is like, oh, if you're valedictorian, you're going to an Ivy League. Like in that sense, I don't think it really does affect your admissions that much. I think colleges now are definitely looking at more of a holistic view and seeing how you are as a person, how you balance like extracurriculars and how you're doing overall in general. I know a lot of people who weren't even top 10. And like it also depends on your class size, right? Like I know Haynes, we had like what 120 kids. So if you were like 60 or 70, like that's halfway for you. But I know a lot of schools have like 400 kids. So if you're like 60th out of 400, that's like you're doing well, you're like up there. So I think it's just all relative, and I think it really depends. So in that sense, I don't think class rank matter all that much, because I also know like a lot of vows and a lot of top 10 students who applied to so many Ivies and didn't get in, but I also know people who like weren't vows and did get in. So I think if you are, it does help, but I don't think there's like a guarantee shoot in.
All right, that's very interesting. So I guess what you're saying is like it's not like a make or break thing. So it's not like the end of the world if you aren't like top 10 in your class, because you can still get in. It's not the end of the world. It's not like you're just going to die or something. So, yeah, I feel like class rank is not the most important thing. But Mahir, would you say that class rank was the most important thing for you when you were applying for colleges, or like one of the most important things when you were applying for colleges?
Class rank is weird because a lot of schools don't even have class rank. Like a lot of schools are getting rid of it. And then at Haynes, it's even weirder because we have the whole like some classes are considered honors while others are not. Like I remember my year, engineering classes weren't considered honors, but now they are. And so a lot of people who did the engineering pathway just didn't weren't able to be in the top 10 because like their classes weren't honors even though they had all A's. Um, I think class rank can matter to an extent. Like they like definitely not being valedictorian as the end be all, but like colleges may want to see how you do compared to other students in your class. But like Dreama said, it's not like the most definitive thing. It can explain like how you are as a student compared to other students in your grade and like how that works out. But again, every school is so different that more so they're gonna look at your grades overall and see how that compares. To other students in year to see if you're like a top, like if you're like, you are able to keep up with the work in college, less so that you need to be like number two in the class. And if you're not, then it's over. Yeah, I think that's the case for how colleges see it. And again, a lot of schools don't have class ranks. They might have like quartiles or whatever. And that's still just another way for them to kind of compare. But again, it's important. I think it's a little important for them to see how you do academically, but it's not the end all be all.
All right, yeah, I'd say that's a pretty solid point, because also this is one thing I saw Dreama and both of you say, and you Mahir say. It's like, yeah, it's pretty relative. Like, yeah, if you're in a large school and you're like the top 25%, that's good. But if you're like in a small school and you're like top 50 or 60%, it's like eh. But but yeah, I think that was definitely a pretty good point that both of you brought up there. But Kanan, would you say that when you were applying for college, would you say that the colleges that you got into, do you think they took your class rank into account? Like, what do you think?
I think, I mean, first off, I was like 20th or not 18th or something. I don't remember. So I wasn't like a valedictorian or anything. It might have been a disadvantage. I mean, like I applied to like I think all of the Ivies or something, and I only got into Yale, so maybe it was a disadvantage. But like what do they call admissions? They call it holistic admissions, right? So they have to look at you as a person, not just as a number, like as a class rank. They have to look at all the circumstances surrounding like why maybe you didn't do so well, or like why some other people did better than you. Like me personally, I transferred to Haynes in 10th grade. So that kind of messed my GPA up a little bit. But on the other hand, I think I saw a statistic somewhere. I don't have the exact number, but valedictorians do have a higher chance of getting in than non-valedictorians, and I think that does just make sense. So you should like try, like obviously you have to try to do your best. But like the other said, like it's not like even if you're on the 60th percentile, like it's not like you're not going to get in. Like you still have a chance. I knew some people at Yale, like they went to a bigger high school and they weren't like top 20% or whatever, and they're still at Yale, right? So it's all about the big picture.
Yeah, that's actually what I was about to say. Is like it's all about the big picture. The colleges aren't gonna hone in on like one little thing that's gonna make or break your chances of getting into a good college. So yeah, I definitely think it's about taking a look at all the factors rather than just one factor, such as class rank. And it seems like based on what all of you have said, class rank is important, but it's not the like single most important thing. So, on to the next question. So, extracurriculars, there are probably one of the biggest parts of the college application process. So, I just want to hear from you guys. How important are extracurriculars in your college applications? And what kind of extracurriculars were the colleges that you applied to interested in? Let's think this time. Let's start off with you, Kanan. Let's start off with you, Kanan.
Yeah, like you said, I think extracurriculars are the biggest factor after your essays and your GPA. It's kind of like applying to a job, really. Like when you're applying to a job, or like in this case, you're applying to a major. They want to see that you have some sort of experience in or around that field. And yeah, I think extracurriculars is a make or break thing. Like there are some extracurriculars that if you do very well at them, you're like very, very likely to get into Ivy colleges. Like there's like the USACOs, like the Olympiads and stuff. Like the people that do that are like insanely cracked. But that's like they're getting in like because of those extracurriculars, right? So it's a very important factor, and yeah, you have to plan for it in high school, really.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And that's what I also think. It's like extracurriculars. It's like kind of like once again going back to what Kanan said, it's a bit of a make or break thing on on your college applications. It's like extracurriculars is like one besides academic right next to academics, like one of the things, the essential requirements that you're going to need when you're applying to colleges. If you're gonna apply to a good college, you gotta have good extracurriculars. But I was interested by one thing that you said, Kanan. But Dreama, so would you say that it's important to have like one or two like very special extracurriculars? Or would you say it's good to be well-rounded and be involved in a lot of extracurriculars? Like, what do you have to say about that?
Okay, I'm no expert. I'm also like not on the college admissions council. Like I really do think it depends on what that admissions counselor like is looking at. Because I know a bunch of my friends who like insanely did insane extracurriculars, like won the spelling bee, like just amazing things, like created startups and like all have all these things. Whereas like I just did a bunch of like my high school extracurriculars, did a bunch of clubs, like volunteered and stuff. So I think it really just depends, right? Like I think it depends on how you're telling your story and how you want to be portrayed across your application. Um I do feel like the way colleges do it is they really do take the holistic approach. They are like seeing how you are as a person and they're seeing your story and how it's built across. And like I think having those special extracurriculars definitely does help. I think it's more about showing that you are putting your best foot forward and doing like the most you can, whether like if that's like a big extracurricular, like a big organization, like you go to the nationals, like the Olympiads, something like that, or it's like you have your small club at school and you like are putting in a lot of effort into it and like you're causing change. Like those are two different scales and like you kind of can't really compare them, yet they are two extracurriculars that you're doing. I think it's more about how you're spending your time like outside of school and how you can handle those extracurriculars alongside your studies. I think it's all about like being able to multitask a lot of things. So I think it's just like it just very much depends on the person and what you are striving for. I've heard like a lot of people be like, "Oh, I need the nonprofit. Like that's the only way I'm getting into these schools. Like I need to like find like, start a club at like school." Like I know a lot of people at Haynes were like, "Oh, I need to found this club. Like that's what I need." I didn't do any of that. Like I truly just did something. I just participated in the clubs and the sports I really liked, and since I was putting so much effort into them, I wanted to see change and I was putting like doing that, but I didn't start a nonprofit. Like I didn't found a club at Haynes. Like I didn't do any of that and I still think I still got in. So I think it really just depends how you like tell your story and like I mean, my piece of advice I don't know if other people agree, would be like, do the extracurriculars that you're passionate about. Don't just do something for the resume. Don't just do it for college. Like, do it if you genuinely do care about it and you're interested in, because at the end of the day, I feel like the college admissions counselors like can see through that if you're doing something because you genuinely care about it or if you're doing it because like you're just doing it for the resume. So I think it like, I know a lot of people might not agree with me, but that's just how I think it works.
I mean, well, one thing I can tell you is that I definitely agree with you. It's like you should definitely do something that like you do care about. Don't just do it for them just to please the masses, or in this case, please the colleges. You should do it because you genuinely care about it. You want to make a difference in the world. You want to help the world and make it as good a place as it can be. So, yeah, that's my take on it. And yeah, I agree with everything that you said just then, Dreama. But I also recall you said you were mentioning that like it's the extracurriculars are as good as well, but it's also about how you manage it alongside like school as well. So, Mahir, what would you say is like the more important aspect? Would you say that like the extracurricular itself is very important, or would you say that colleges also do take into account how you manage it alongside school? Like, what is your take on this?
Well, I think how you manage it is how they see it. If you have good grades and you're also doing, you're putting a lot into your extracurriculars, that shows good time management and efficiency skills. And I think that's what they want to see. Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. I don't think it's not good to have it go the other ways, having bad grades, but also having like an insane extracurricular portfolio, unless you like got a Nobel Prize at the age of 16. Then I think there's like some chance for you. And then the other way, like having no extracurriculars, but having really good grades is also not great for the Ivies, I would say. Having great grades, but not having that many extracurriculars can still lend you a lot of scholarship money at other schools, especially like public state schools where they're really focusing on the grades and the test scores. Um, One thing I would add on to what Dream and Kanan said is I think it's a lot about your story with extracurriculars. The reason you would put a lot of effort into it is because they matter to you. And if you're able to like really convey why they matter to you and what you've done with them through your essays and through your own story and how they all connect to each other and to you, I think that's very powerful. Because like Dreama, I don't think I didn't found a club at Haynes. I didn't like start a nonprofit. I did competitions for the most part and like did well at them. And then put a lot of effort into them. And then I like led a few clubs at Haynes, and did some volunteering, but like I don't think it was anything out of the blue. Like I wasn't I wasn't an Olympiad winner. I think it's just all about how you put it together for yourself. And that goes together as a total package with, having your good grades, test scores, etc., letters of rec. It all fits together.
Yeah, I guess that is true. Extracurriculars is just one part of the puzzle in the great winding puzzle that is college applications. So, yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I also remember watching this video that I came across on YouTube, and it always stuck with me because I thought it was really interesting. It said that, like, sure, you can be taking like a lot of APs, you can have a perfect GPA, you can get a perfect score on the SAT, but that is only one part of many parts on the college application. Because if you're only like a one trick pony and you're only good at academics, then you're not really you're not really doing a lot of other things. Those colleges aren't really going to look at you and be like, wow, he's so different from the other people that we've seen. It's all about, I guess, trying to stand out, trying to complete, once again, trying to put the pieces together in the puzzle that is college applications. And so, yeah, I definitely agree with all of your points. And now on to the next question. So this one is kind of relating to the last one I just asked as well. It's also about extracurriculars, but it's about a one particular extracurricular that each of you have done. So what extracurricular did each of you do that you think especially helped your chances of getting into a good college? Let's um let's start off with you, Dreama. Let's start off with you, Dreama.
Okay. I'm gonna be so honest. I really don't think there's just like one singular extracurricular like I did that like really made me stand out. I think it's everything that I did um in total added together that's what made me stand out. It was like it's Mahir's what Mahir said, and I'll like keep iterating it. It's like your story. I applied as a bio major, um, but my extracurriculars reflected that. So I did this like auction. I don't know if you know, it's like called Star Auctioneer, and it's a research program at Auctioneer Hospital. And I did that, and we did research, and it was also like kind of a program where they like went through and you shadowed a bunch of doctors and they talked about all the different sectors in the medical field. We visited a bunch of like local hospitals while also doing research lab work on the side. Um, so that played into my like story kind of why I wanted to do bio and like why I'd want to be pre-med. I'm not pre-med anymore, but like it helped. But I don't think like that doing that research program is what made me like stand out from everyone else, because I think everyone else that is pre-med and is applying to these schools are also doing research everywhere else at like maybe even bigger hospitals and maybe doing even more like lab work than I did. I think it's just the fact that I did the research program alongside like putting in like a lot of volunteer work. I know I volunteered a lot. I loved doing it, so I volunteered where I could. But I also like during the school I would do like sports, and I would lead a bunch of clubs. So I don't think there's just one extracurricular that I did that made me stand out. I think it is a bunch of like all of it, being able to handle all of it together is the reason why I stood out. Also, I think it's about your experiences in your extracurriculars. Like, yes, a lot of people can volunteer a bunch of places, but when I volunteered, I feel like I was volunteering at like Second Harvest Food Bank, and I loved it. Like I wrote about it in one of my essays about how like I met the same lady every Wednesday. Her name was like Mrs. Jean, and like she like I still remember her because of how regular I went, and she kind of made an impact on my life. So it's like it's about the story that you're telling in your extracurricular that I think is what makes you stand out, because it shows that you aren't just doing the extracurricular just to do it. You are kind of getting an experience out of it. You're seeing how it impacts you and how it's like making a difference in your life. And it also explains why you continue doing it. So, and that's
Yeah, that's definitely some pretty good points that you just made. There's not like one stick out extracurricular that the colleges will be like, wow, at. It's like it all comes together, and it's about, once again, what the point that you guys keep touching on. It's about the story that your extracurriculars are telling, and about like how you paint that story in your college essays. And yeah, I definitely think that's a very important part of the college essay. Once again, extracurriculars. But Kanan, would you say that there was a standout extracurricular that you think stood out to the colleges, or would you say that it was kind of Dreama's approach that you had? Like, what happened with you?
I mean, I didn't really have like a standout extracurricular that would stand out compared to other applicants. Cause like I know some people that like TA'd at an Ivy college as a high schooler. Like you're not gonna compete with that. Like you're not gonna stand out compared to that. I did have extracurricular that stood out compared to the rest of my application. And that was I did like a summer program under this AI nonprofit called AI for All. I think it was at Carnegie Mellon University, and they were just like teaching you like machine learning principles and concepts, and then like they made you build a project. And there was like an alumni network off of that where you could like get together with other high schoolers and like build some sort of machine learning project. I think that stood out because Carnegie Mellon is like one of the best colleges for computer science. And I think that might have looked like a good extracurricular because like learning computer science at Carnegie Mellon. And I also did this project towards like the tail end of my senior year. So I kind of sent this not in my actual like application, but in my updates. We built like a machine learning tumor detection project. And I just told them about that in my updates, and maybe that helped me get over the line. But I really can't say for certain. It really does have to fit into your story though. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So you said that you did like an AI summer camp over the summer at Carnegie Mellon. And I know like when my brother was applying to colleges, he like saw Carnegie Mellon, and it's like the number one ranked computer science school cuz yeah, I know. It's like one of the best schools for computer science. Yeah, I definitely think that's yeah, a good standout extracurricular. But also, Mahir, would you say that your passion like should determine your extracurricular that like stands out to the colleges? Like what do you think? What do you have to say?
Yeah, I think it's definitely easier for you if your passion is what you do with your extracurriculars. Because I think if you hate your extracurriculars, you're just gonna hate your life a little bit. Because you're just gonna be spending a lot of time on things you don't like. Um, I will say for me, like I was very interested in like politics in high school. But I also had a lot of interest in STEM. I really loved math and like bio and chem. I didn't like physics that much. But I love Dr. B's class if she's watching. Um, I will so like I my passion was kind of trying to like link those two, which is a lot harder than you think in high school. I think it's easier in college to link those two. Yeah, so I did some political work and stuff and some competitions that leaned that way as well. And then I also did like a summer research internship at LSU Med School before senior year. So that exposed me to a lot of like genetics and genomics research. And I basically just like linked that with my political interests and my essays. Um, so that's what I did. Those were like, basic science, like basic bio and political science, they're pretty different. But they were two things I was passionate about, and because of that, I was kind of able to like link them together. Like Dreama said, I don't think I had a big standout activity for myself or compared to other students who go to Brown. Like you'll meet people who it's like, wow, you did the most insane stuff like before you were 18. Yeah, again, it's just all about how you tell that story. And if you have a passion for if you have passion for what you do in your extracurriculars, then it's a lot easier to tell that story.
Yeah, it's very important that you know why you're doing the extracurricular, because if you don't know why you're doing the extracurricular, then it's like why are you even doing that? There's no point, because you should always like what you're trying to do. Otherwise, at some point, you're just going to hate it and you're just not going to want to do it anymore. Because once again, going back to the point that Dreama said, it's like you should do it because you actually care about it, and you shouldn't do it just to like please the colleges. And that's what I think is definitely most important. But yeah, those are some pretty solid answers from you guys. I really wish we had time to talk about more, but it seems like we've run out of time today. So in the next episode, I am going to keep interviewing Mahir, Dreama, and Kanan on the college application process. But until then, that's the end of today's episode. Thank you for watching, and remember, dare to dream big!